people to sell themselves short.
Thank you.
Chair Salinas and Vice Chair Nose and Hayden, my name is Kevin Fitz. For the record, I am an Oregon Health Plan member, and I'm also the volunteer executive director of the Oregon Mental Health Consumers Association. I'm here to speak in favor of House Bill 2831. I want to make my comments really short because I know you're trying to get to some things else. I want to, first of all, give a tremendous shout out to Representative Greenlick, Representative Kenny Geyer, especially on this committee for the last 18 months, have been encouraging me and educating me on the side of how this process works and encouraging me as Joe Q public citizen to get engaged, understand this process, and make our needs as a customer known to you, to this body. So thank you so much. I'm also blessed by Senator Lou Frederick, Senator Sarah Gelser, et cetera, and their support on the Senate side for this initiative. So what we're talking about is peer respite. So let's just quickly take the peer out of it. So we're talking about respite. So I'm an Oregon Health Plan member. There's 1 million of us. 200,000 of us suffer from addiction issues, behavioral health issues, schizophrenia, bipolar, all those sort of things. So take that down a little bit further. SPMI, severe persistent mental illness. I've been diagnosed for 30 years with schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia. And as the beautiful blonde-haired woman just said, I have had some challenges on and off. And when I haven't had those challenges, 20 years ago, your governor then, Kitzhaber, sent me out to New Hampshire to look at peer respite. So other states have been doing peer respite for a long time, 20 years and then some. What we're talking about here, psychiatric crisis. I'm an Oregon Health Plan member. Let's just say that Alyssa Kenny Geyer runs the hospital. I knock on her door at 10 at night because she says, you're going to get us kicked out again, Kevin. I knock on her door and say, Representative Kenny Geyer, I'd like to get into your hospital. She said, I see you're in psychiatric distress. I see you're hurting. I see you need some help. But unfortunately, you do not meet the criteria to be under an involuntary hold. Do you know what I mean by that? There is no option. There's no room at the inn. I wish Jesus was here because he'd make this point. If you are voluntary, if my girlfriend says you're going to get kicked out again for another time, you need to go someplace. We go to the emergency room 2 dozen times. I'm in distress. I need to stay here. Sorry, you do not meet criteria. You cannot be here involuntary. There are no voluntary beds because the involuntary movement is overwhelming capacity. Director Allen could tell you the acuity level, the people seeking an 11 out of a psychiatric crisis system are more than ever. We're swamped with it. In between my house or my apartment and the locked psychiatric ward, there is no in between. I admitted myself to Dammasch State Hospital in 1985. I walked in and said, I'm suicidal. I need to stay here. It wasn't evaluated where I met legal criteria. I could be voluntary. You cannot go, I don't know about places where Representative Hayden and other places of Oregon, you cannot go in the metro area to Unity Psychiatric Crisis, disclaimer, I'm on their advisory board. You cannot go there and say, I'm a volunteer patient, I need to chill out, I need to stay here for 4 or 5 days. If they had room, they'd probably let you in, but they don't have room because they're overwhelmed. They're always at census, 85 stacked. They always, significantly, they're on alert where they're discharging people and sending them to their hospitals. It does not exist. A rung in the system, there are 50,000 people in your system who have severe, persistent mental illness, schizophrenia, manic depressive, severe disorders, that unless they're boiling at an 11, they cannot get into Representative Kenny Geyer's place. What is the alternative? Your case management team can come out and touch base with you, but we used to have a significant and robust intermediate voluntary part of our system. And that got blown away when Governor Kitzhaber and Dr. Goldberg set up the CCO process and changed it. And that maybe was an oversight, and there's been some shortage of attention by OHA around this. But the issue is, why isn't an intermediate area of voluntary services for people in psychiatric distress? The second point I want to make about that, there is nobody in the state of Oregon who has a pulse on what the services look like, how it helps people, than these friends of mine that you heard testify. They have been there. They are your customers. These people are connected to tribes and networks all over the state of Oregon who talk about what is therapeutic engagement. And what the problem is, even if I did get into Representative Kenny Geyer's psychiatric hospital, the methods of containment and complicit medication and treatment adherence sometimes can be quite a significant power struggle. And yours truly, Mr. Fitz, has scars on his legs where his family and his partner dropped him off at the psych ward and they tackled me. I still have a scar on my left leg from one of my last hospitalizations. The challenge is that you, between touching base with me in the day at my house or being on 11 and the bandages all come off and I'm wild, and out of control, there is no 6 or 6 to 9. States like Ohio, New York, and Pennsylvania, who pay their mental health directors a lot more than you folks do, have realized the wisdom of this type of service. The question about our peers professionals, one of the persons who testifies went to Stanford, probably has an IQ, twice of mine. There are an awful lot of people who recognize, cancer survivors, Vietnam vets, recovering alcoholics, but they also do something professionally. And although peer workers are not medical diagnostic professionals, they are professionals. So I want to say that this idea of peer respite is not something, like Commissioner Myron said, it should be an essential part of your system. It costs $2,000 today to keep a customer like me in a locked psychiatric ward. Peer respites run $400 a day, maybe even less. The third thing you need to understand about this, like cancer survivors, like Vietnam vets, like Alcoholics Anonymous, the connection of people who are in recovery, people who have schizophrenia or been diagnosed with schizophrenia. Director Allen tells me all the time, God, I wish we could get more people with your background involved in policy and making decisions. And I said, I wish that we could do a better job of helping people get on the road to recovery, wellness, self-determination, emancipation, so they could do this. And that's where we are with this. So the two issues I want you to think about. End
on a high note. That was perfect.
is the intermediate voluntary services and what therapeutic engagement for people in psychotic distress looks like. So, and I also, again, want to say thank you so much to Representative Cedric Hayden for taking the leadership on this beginning of session and sponsoring this, and I'm very thankful.
Thank you. Questions for this panel? Representative Alonso Leon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the all of the speeches and testimony. You all educated me in a way that I wasn't aware of, so I really appreciate that. I also, one of my questions is, and I really appreciated the comment from the gentleman in front of me who said this is a warm, welcoming environment, that's what these respite care systems are about, which I really appreciate. But I didn't hear from anybody share with me that they're culturally responsive, or that folks speak multiple languages, because at the end of the day, mental health issues has no boundaries, right? It impacts everybody across the board in all cultures. And so it's imperative for us to talk about, the importance of having that lens so that folks who are going through different experiences know that whatever respite center they're going to go to, they're going to have that warm, welcoming experience, because there's folks in there who speak their language, understand their culture, and that they're going to be taken care of because there's peers who understand them. So so for me, it's not a question, it's a comment, because I think it's important for us to think about it.
Thank you. Representative Kinney-Geyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quickly, this is a fantastic bill. Thank you to our vice chairs for bringing it forward. Thank you to Representative Alonso Leon for her comments, as always. I know we're going to have a culturally competent bill that's coming up, so I can't remember if it applies to all of the different professions underneath the Traditional Health Workers Commission, but that is run through the Office of Equity and Inclusion at OHA, so I know that they carry that lens, but always important for you to put that on the record, so it's really, really critical. This was just a fantastic group of panels. I'm so impressed, and I learned as much from Kevin as he says that he has learned from us over the last couple of years, as you've really been promoting this. First brought it forward in 2017, and you've made so much progress bringing it forward. I love this bill. I want to say something about this bill, like the Sobering Center, that eventually we have to make sure that health insurance picks up these costs.
Thank you. Representative Hayden.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the testimony. Thank everybody for the testimony. I just wanted to clarify really quickly, and I should have written 2 speeches, Rob. Just really quickly on my submission, that was a 2-year period of time. So I wanted to just point out that the 3,100 are admits over a 2-year period of time. We would like this pilot project to run for at least a biennium so we could get some data back. I believe it's kind of like a thesis, and we prove the thesis, and this is really where we need to go. Thank you.
Representative Drazen.
I'll just do it quick. I heard somebody mention that there's the potential of up to 50,000 people in Oregon who might potentially need these services. Somebody said 50,000. That seems like a huge number, but I noticed in this bill that it's 6 or fewer individuals for up to 2 weeks. So we're talking about potentially 18 people every 2 weeks having access to these services. And I have only 2 questions related to that. How do those 18 people find and locate these pilot locations? How does word get out in the community that this opportunity even exists because it's so small? And secondarily, if they have been there for up to 2 weeks and additional respite is needed, what happens then?
Is that directed to me?
To whoever is able
Mr.
to
Fitz,
answer
you
those
can answer.
questions.
Representative Hayden, do you want to answer? Or?
No, go ahead. But
Hear it, Kevin.
So what Wisconsin promoted this in 2012. They initially said, let's do 30, they had 36 counties, I think. They said, let's do one in every single county right now. So they were promoting it. They started with 3. We looked at other states that have started with 1. The thing where these are thriving, and in New York State, in Pennsylvania and Ohio, in very urban areas and rough areas, where these are thriving the most is they're an integral part of your public mental health service system. So below that, you have your community mental health clinic. Above that, you have your psychiatric crisis ward and the jail. They are folded into that continuity of care. The challenge is, how are we going to serve 50,000 people in emotional psychiatric distress that don't need to be held against their will? Well, I would love that if this committee decides to fund it in every single county, that would be great. But we're trying to make the case, let's start with 3 in different areas, geographical, cultural, and rural frontier and urban, and let's see what this looks like, how it folds out, how it meets people's needs. That makes sense?
And after 2 weeks, if they still need additional care?
Yes, yeah, so in some of these places where it operates, it's not set in stone that you actually have to leave. Some people get extended care. Some people get removed to a higher level of support because they need such things. So in most places where it operates, it's not particularly definite that you have to get out at this particular time.
Representative Prusak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support respite 100%. I am so excited about this bill. And I would like to add that I bet as you move forward, the number will come down that is in need because the person providing respite has a life goal. They have fulfillment because they're working. And so it's not just for one person in this scenario. So thank you.
2 seconds. I just want to say that 18 times 365 is 6,570 nights a year.
Thank you.
I should say, Representative, out of that 50,000.
Kevin, we have to move.
Okay.
We have another bill that's up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm closing the public hearing on House Bill 2831 and opening a public hearing on House Bill